This is week 9 in CEP 198, and we'll be talking about multitasking and interruptions this week and next week. So on November 8th, we will not be having class, but next week we'll be finishing chapters 4 and 5, so you won't have any additional reading to do between this week and next week. Let's start with an intellectual stamina survey. So you'll see a link to the right and click on that link, and for each one of these items you're going to indicate how long you can focus on that item before you start to lose your focus. And even if it's something that doesn't take very long, how long could you concentrate on it if you had a lot of that to do? So finish that up and think about what makes something easy to concentrate and what makes something difficult to concentrate on as you're going through this. Now, a couple of your classmates had this to say that was kind of related to this. Kira asks about people can only go 3 to 5 minutes before switching tasks, and it made her think about herself and how just even doing this homework assignment, you want to grab your phone and check it. So how long can you go when you're studying or doing homework before you need to grab your phone? And then Lucia says she wonders why she's able to focus on things that aren't academic tasks, but for academic tasks she finds it more challenging. And why do you think that is? The thing about this activity that you just completed is that I've had many different students complete this activity in elementary, middle, high school, and in higher education. And it usually comes out that the two big categories are things that are hard to concentrate on are either difficult or very challenging, or they're very tedious and boring. And the other end, something that you're very interested in, that you like, you don't have to worry about paying attention to, and you can pay attention for long periods of time. So this is something that we need to be aware of, because we don't need to control our attention if it's something we like to do and it's easy to pay attention. We only need to control our attention when it's hard to pay attention. So if we're going to be doing something that's tedious, boring, or that's extra challenging, that's when we have to think about maybe using some attention control. Let's do this experiment now that's attention switching, and this was in our book. So let's try it. For this experiment, I'm going to show you a screen, and for the first items, you are going to subtract 3 from each number. You ready? Let's go. Now I want you to name the opposite of each word. Ready? How did they go for you? Was it easy? Was it hard? What do you think? Now we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to use some attention switching. So we're going to go back and forth between words and numbers. So are you ready? Here we go. So how would you do? What was the difference between the two activities? Was it easier, harder, the same? What do you think? What Gloria Marx talks about in her book is that we have this attention residue. So when we switch from one task to another, a bit of the previous task is still in the back of our mind, hanging around. So this attention residue is something that we need to pay attention to. Another thing is that we use mental energy, our cognitive resources, every time we switch tasks. So if we keep switching tasks, that's why we might get really fatigued and tired. So Waikiki talks about this switching tasks, and he talks about leading to fatigue and reduced productivity. And he says, he gets really irritated when something comes up when he's trying to concentrate. So what about you? How do you feel when you're trying to concentrate and something keeps interrupting you? Let's talk about multitasking. So Caitlin says she noticed that multitasking can be very different for different people. So in the book, they explain how many people multitask in many different ways. So how do you multitask? Nolan is wondering, is there a way to efficiently multitask by switching your full attention into two things that need it? So here's kind of a philosophical question to ask you. When I talk about multitasking, I'm talking about with your attention, so that two things that you have to pay attention to. We don't pay attention to our walking or our breathing or those kind of things. But when there's two things that you have to put your attention on, can you pay attention to two things at once? Or are you attention switching, really? Or are you interleaving, where you intentionally say, I'm going to pay attention to this for 20 minutes, then I'm going to pay attention to this, or I'm paying attention to this and I'm starting to get tired, so I intentionally switch to another task. So what do you think? Can you pay attention to two things at once? Now, in our book, we have this quote from Gloria Marx about every 12 minutes people are faced with significant disruptions that last 2 minutes or longer. And this is in the workplace. Her research was in a workplace. So when we think about this in our workplace, if we're going to keep getting disrupted, how are we handling that? And what is it having to do with our health and our stress if we're not managing it well? Because every time we switch tasks, we deplete some of our cognitive resources. So pitching, think about that. So here's a difficult task scenario. I sit down to work on a difficult task, maybe something that's going to take me a long time. I start working and I'm focusing well, and all of a sudden I think about, I have to take out the garbage. But I ignore that and I keep working. Then I continue working on my task, and all of a sudden I get a notification of a text from someone important, like my mom. So I quickly answer the text and then return to work. As I'm working and continuing to work, my mind starts wandering and I'm finding it really hard to concentrate. So, being the good student that I am, I decide I'm going to take a break. Because I know that I will replenish my energy if I take a little break. So I go to take out the garbage, and while I'm out there, I decide, I'm going to take a little walk. Now, when I come back in, I know I should return to work, but I decide I'm going to check my Instagram to feed and spend, about an hour on my Instagram. Then I'm feeling guilty about not returning to work, and guilt leads to stress, and I have less energy, and I just continue to look at Instagram. Does this sound familiar to you? What can we do about this? This is normal human behavior. So what can we do about it? That's what we're going to be learning in the next few weeks. So come to class next Wednesday and we'll continue with this conversation and learning what to do about this kind of behavior so we can actually manage our attention. Have a good week.